Hey there, this is Emily and Bernie from Third Place Works, where we help co-working professionals with tailored cohorts and one-on-one consulting. Our proven frameworks can help you get focused, stay accountable, and see real results. Want to learn more? Check out the show notes for all the details on how to join us and take your co-working business to the next level.
Hello, folks. It's one of this week's two co-working values podcasts, and all the way from sunny St. Neots. Is that right? Is it St. Neots?
just say near Cambridge.
Near Cambridge, for those of you who are in another part of the universe, is my good friend Ann. And Ann, what are you known for, and what would you like to be known for?
I don't know about what I'd like to be known for. I think I'm pretty well known for what I want to be known for already, so I'm not looking to change that. But basically, helping small businesses to realise that running a small business doesn't have to be hard. It can be very isolating, and there's lots to learn and all that kind of stuff. But there's an awful lot of confusion and complications brought into it that really don't need to be there. Keeping things really simple works, and working in collaboration with other people who are running small businesses really works.
What can you? I'm always ranting about that. So why does that really work? Because that's one of the gifts of being in your Drive network, and what we talk about around the whole co-working community all the time is like doing things with other people. And in your vast experience, what is the magic pixie dust of doing stuff with other people?
It works because most people who start their own business do it because they have a very particular set of skills or interests or things that they want to earn a living from. But on top of that, what they bring to their business is themselves. And each one of them is unique. So in terms of looking at another business and thinking of them as competition, unless that person running that business is your twin, they're not. They actually have complementary skills. And people choose to work with other people based on their personality and their values and their ethics and all of that kind of thing, as well as their skills. So it's not just saying, oh, that's another web designer, that's another bookkeeper, therefore they're my competition. What those people are offering is always slightly different. And therefore, by working alongside of them and figuring out what they do, and what you can do that's different to them, and how you're different to them, and how you complement each other, you could actually end up offering clients a much better service and a much better product, because you're adding things to each other. But the biggest thing of all of that is actually learning from each other. One of the biggest things that people have to overcome when they start a business is all the things they need to learn. Do they need a CRM? What kind of bookkeeping system do they need? How do they set about marketing? How do they use social media? And there are millions of people who've done that already. And if those people are very similar to you, and they've got a similar size of business, and they're looking for a similar target market, then they're the best people to learn from, not the people who are trying to sell you something.
Yeah, and I know it happens in every genre of business, but like in co-working, I have so many examples of two or three co-working spaces in the same town almost going to war with each other. And then I have even more examples of two or three co-working spaces in the same town working out, well, actually, architects feel more at home here, and the designers feel more at home here. And it's so close, like, it's like the what do you call width of a hair. But when everyone makes the effort to collaborate and sometimes even cross-refer people, it saves so much energy. Like the amount of energy you save by not being in competition with people and finding out the collaboration points is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, imagine if each co-working space in a small city or a town got together and decided to write a regular column in their local paper or online or whatever it is, about the benefits of co-working. If they did that together, it would have much more impact and reach a lot more people than if they each tried to do it individually.
Stacey is doing that in Totnes, and I don't know how it's working, but the fact it's happening just brings this wave of really, really good energy. And one of the sort of things holding co-working back is hardly anyone knows what it is. And the pandemic and even our good friends at WeWork helped bring that more into the mainstream. But people don't know they can go around the corner and sit in a room with other people. I want to get onto your very valuable work smart, not hard list, so people can like go down the list. So what's at the top of the Ann's checklist?
Well, there are 6 things, and you can look at them perhaps as building blocks. That when all of these things are in place for your small business, it removes a lot of the uncertainty. So the first one is to have a very clear vision of why you're doing it, and this isn't the Simon Sinek. Everybody needs to understand your why. They really don't. They don't care. But what you need to do is you need to understand your why, because there are days when it's hard to get out of bed, and understanding why you're doing it is really important. And that can be as simple as, I want to earn enough money to give my family a decent lifestyle without killing myself, without being absent because I'm commuting, without having to put up with all the crap that goes on in offices. That can be your why. That can be your vision. Just to create a better lifestyle for your family where you're more present than you were before. It can include things like making the world a better place, not doing harm to the planet or other people. But that kind of comes into the values and ethics that come in later. But it doesn't have to be an overpowering vision and purpose that a lot of marketers say you have to have. You just need to understand your own reason for doing this.
And how long does that take to do? Because I'm really into that now, but 10 years ago, I thought I had to, book a week in a cabin in, the mountains in Sweden and, meditate on it. I know people overthink that. Yeah.
No, it can be, if you go back to thinking, why did you decide to work for yourself instead of for somebody else? And it may be that nobody else would have you, but that would also give you some answers about the kind of person that you are and the kind of people that you want to work with. If you want to choose your own clients, if you want to be really in control, then that's enough. That's fine.
It's funny where you say that Simon Sinek book is. I got so lost in that.
Yeah, a lot of people do, but you have to remember that Simon Sinek is a master of persuasion and marketing and manipulation and all kinds of things. He is very, very, very good at what he does, and his whole business is aimed at making big corporations pay him a lot of money by believing that they need to do the sorts of things he tells them they need to do. He's not interested in small businesses at all. His work is aimed at people like us.
He's the amount of people that talk about that why book, which I definitely enjoyed, but I every time someone says, "Oh, I'm reading Start with a Why," which people think is an important book, but I kind of go, "Oh,
Yeah, well, again, starting with the why is fine, but it's the why that's important to you. It's not the why that you need to sell to other people in order to make them believe in you. Nobody's ever bought anything because they believe in the owner of the business or the leader of the business. They buy it because somebody produces a product or a service that they need. That's it.
It's that simple. What's number 2?
Number 2 is that you have a need. Years and years ago, I worked with somebody who had a wedding planning business. She was single, and every time we got to the point where she needed to do something that she was slightly uncomfortable with, she just wouldn't do it. And so we talked a lot about earning the money that she said she wanted to earn and all that. Turns out that she had a trust fund. She had shares in Google and Apple and all the rest of it that were bought when those companies started. she had no real need to work at all. And this wedding planning business was a kind of a thing that she'd landed on because she was single and she was interested in weddings. So once we discovered that, there was no need for me to work with her because she didn't have a need to work. So the need, you have to, again, it's coming back to getting out of bed in the morning. There has to be a reason for doing that. You have to say, I need to be making enough money to pay the mortgage. Or I need to occupy myself every day with work that's meaningful for my own mental health. So whatever that need is, again, just be clear about it. Otherwise, things get very confused. You just if there's no need to do anything, you don't do it, and you just give up.
Yeah, you got to have the fire in the belly, and my fire in the belly has come and gone, and I think that's people I've worked with. I mean, a really great example of this is Kofi, who runs Urban MBA. He hasn't got a fire in the belly; he's got a furnace in the belly, and that is what keeps like a Urban MBA just never stops, because the vision and the need of Kofi is, I'm going to say cosmic, and I'm not saying that flippantly. He just has to make it work. Whereas other people, are a little bit like your wedding planner with shares in Google. And if she had shares in Google before the pandemic, no, Apple before the pandemic, she's probably has even less need now. What would number 3 be? This is like doing the top 10 on Sunday night. Bruno Brooks.
So number 3 is making sure you've got the skills you need. So anybody who's been running a business for any length of time knows that the skills you need are multitudinous. You don't just need the skills to be good at what you do, at producing the goods or the services that you want to sell. You need a whole load of other skills as well. So figuring out what skills you have and what skills you don't have is an important point. And then you have to decide, what are you going to do about the skills you don't have? And my advice always is to, as soon as possible, is to outsource or delegate or find someone else who has those skills and work with them. Don't try and learn how to build a website if that's not your skill. Don't do your own tax return if that's not your thing. I know accountants who don't do their own tax returns. They outsource it to somebody else because it doesn't make them any money to do their own. So breaking that skills set down, once you're confident in the skills that you have that you can bring to the business, that's great. But then look for other people who bring the other skills that you need.
When I've never been in this situation myself, so I can't relate. But when people start something, there's like this drinking from the fire hose, and they go and start with a Y, and they there's just so much information, whether it is like half-baked information from your local business support thing run by the government, or podcasts, or there's never been more information around about how to start a business. And how would you guide people through that minutiae or quagmire, whatever the word is? There's so much to do at the same. And now I'm near, a bit more grown up about it. I think you need to know less than you think you need to know.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah. So anything you look at that starts to make you feel anxious of, do I need to know this? Should I be signing up for that? Do I need to investigate this? Is it something that I need to? And this happened with AI when that was introduced. So many people said, "Oh God, I need to learn about AI." No, you don't, because there are other people who know about AI, and you can play around with it and learn a little bit and all the rest of it. But if it starts to make you feel anxious, it's probably a good indication that you need somebody else who does know that, who does have those skills, who can talk you through it, or do it for you, or take it away. And just take it off your plate.
That's a really good. That's a very good way of explaining it. When you have a little burst of anxiety, see where you can offload it. So the other thing I've seen, and I'd love you to comment on, is the amount of people, including me, who have gone, let's sign up to HubSpot or Salesforce, and then spend all year learning it and not selling anything. And I feel, not even I feel, I was being too nice there. They just outsource their success to an application that is going to kill them trying to learn how to use. And again, when a co-working space says, "Oh, we've signed up to HubSpot," and as I know, like Marcus Sheridan, who we both know, has made millions using HubSpot because he has 5 people and their job is only to use HubSpot, and he's been using it nonstop. So yes, it is a very valuable tool. But for Jane and Freddie opening a co-working space in Basingstoke, it's easier to swim the Atlantic.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick another thing in here, Bernie. It's not on the list, but just to do a bit of critical thinking. When something lands in your inbox or whatever, and it's so well crafted, the message is so compelling that you think, oh, I really, I need this thing. Just step back a minute and think what's going on there. What's happening is you're being sold to. And nothing wrong with that. The people who are selling this stuff earn a lot of money because they know how to sell, and that's the whole package. But you don't have to buy. Just because you can recognize that something is being well sold and there are people out there for whom it is appropriate doesn't mean that that's you. So, step back, recognize that you're being sold to, that somebody's doing a really good job, and then bin it. Because if you don't need it, there is absolutely no point. You're adding to somebody else's income and revenue, but you're robbing yourself of really, really valuable time.
That's really true. Because I'm so easily distracted. I like reading those things because I like reading good copywriting, and I just every so often, I just have this massive unsubscribe thing, and particularly when I'm tight on time, money, and energy, I just unsubscribe from everything because it just distracts me. And then I know what if I pick up Instagram after 9:30 at night, I'll buy like 6 things I don't need, and just don't just be aware of the of your weak zones. What would be after that then? Number
Resources.
4?
Yeah.
Resources.
Yeah, number 4. So do you have all the resources that you need to run your business? So the typical ones are time and money. They're the ones that most small business owners really struggle with. And the time thing is because they try and do too much, and they don't they don't properly analyze how long things take to actually do. They estimate, and then don't charge enough because they've estimated wrongly. So the time issue is something that they can solve by some very strategic working. Not having enough money when you start a business is a big problem. I would always advise people to start their business as a side hustle while they've got a job, while they're building a nest egg, because you need a cushion. You need an emergency fund. You need to be able to have enough money to commission a website or an app or whatever it is that you need to get your business started. To buy whatever materials you need, to pay for some rent or co-working space or whatever. You absolutely need some capital before you start your business. And not having enough money is one of the biggest reasons. Well, it's the main reason that small businesses fail, and most of them do it within the first 5 years, because they're on this hamster wheel of making the money, spending the money, making the money, spending the money, and they never put enough away to make it to make that cushion that they need for emergencies or just to feel secure.
I think the starting something while you are making income might seem a lot, and I definitely made this mistake. Is I think what ends up happening that if you really believe in what you're trying to start, you'll find a way to make it happen. And every time I think, oh, I've got loads of time, I just fill it up with milkshakes and cheeseburgers. And that phrase, if you want something done, ask a busy person. And the people I've seen that have like lasted have started something while they're working, and the amount of like not having money is such an energy zapper. So finding a way to make that work. When people do start selling, where do you think where do you see them? Because work with a lot of people, they like consistent, like, oh my god, they did that. Everyone does that. What are one or two things that people blow money on they don't need to, or shoot themselves in the foot?
The biggest thing that shoots themselves in the foot with is underpricing. People seem to think for some reason that when you start a business, you're new and therefore you ought to be cheaper than the people who've got experience. And that's simply not true. If you've got the right skills and you're actually producing something that people want, then the pricing is crucial. And the pricing should always give you that cushion. It should always more than cover your costs. And I know if you're producing a service, it's sometimes hard to work out what the actual costs are. But everybody knows what it costs them to live. They know how much they need to make a month, and they know what's comfortable, and they know what's going to give them a little bit extra, where they can afford a holiday, they can afford some health insurance, they can afford to start investing in a pension. And all of those things have to be built into your pricing, because that's the cost of running a business. And that somehow just escapes a lot of people. They think, oh, well, it's only my time. It really isn't. Really isn't only your time that you're charging for. And if you get into discussions with clients who are really arsy about pricing, they're not the right clients. And the biggest thing I talk to people about is when they absolutely knew that they took on a client that wasn't right, and then a few months down the line they had to sack them. And in every case they know right from the start it's not right, but because they're in this scarcity mindset, they can't bear to turn down work, so they accept work even though it's not right for them. That's a real confidence thing. That's something that does get easier the longer you're in business. But the idea that you have to be cheap because you're new is wrong. You really don't. And the other thing about pricing is that it's not a science; it's an art. And people assess the value of a product or a service based on its price. So the more expensive it is, the more they think they're buying quality. So by going cheap, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot big time.
All of that. And the other thing I'd add on there, I was like wincing as you said that because I've done all those things. The pricing conversation is one of the best reasons to hang around other people, because all the, like there was when we did Tag Tribe, there was one day we called it the creator club or something. Basically everyone that worked in marketing, PR and everything like that. And there was one guy who was really young, absolute genius, was building websites for people. He could build this is like in 2013, he could build a full-blown WordPress website in 10 minutes, while riding a unicycle. And he was charging like £100 a day, and everyone else in the room was charging like £750 a day. And we're like, mate, what are you doing? And he's like, well, if I can do 2 websites a week. If I work, you're earning £200 a week and you're a genius. And then he significantly increased his prices, and he got more rounds in at the bar after that. But let's move on to the next one.
Okay, so the fifth one is to have a plan. Again, when people start a business, they kind of think, oh, in 5 years' time, I'll be sitting on a beach with my laptop and, whatever. I don't know. That may be the plan. Or in 5 years' time, I'll be employing 20 people. And in some ways, it doesn't matter what the plan is, because it doesn't actually matter whether you succeed in that plan or not. But the plan is important because of the planning. This is the Eisenhower planning module of a plan. The most important part of a plan is the planning, because it makes you think about what you need, what the future is. And I was talking to somebody yesterday who said, "Thank you very much for all the work you've done with me. You've made me realise that I don't actually want the sort of business that we planned."
Wow, that is a gift.
So by having a plan and looking at why she wasn't taking these actions every month to make the plan happen, she realised that that wasn't what she wanted. And therefore, it gave her an opportunity to talk about what kind of business she did want. So, and getting to the end of the week and not knowing what you've done, what you've achieved, is awful. Getting to the end of a year and having to look back and think, did I actually make anything happen other than just go day by day and not get into debt? That's pretty awful as well. So by having some kind of a plan, you're acknowledging each step of the way that you are actually doing something, and that you're achieving something along the way, and that's so important. It's just too easy when you run your own business. You've got nobody to be accountable to. You've got nobody to say well done. Nobody to say, well, why didn't you do that when you said you were going to do it? You just kind of drift from day to day, and you can go on like that for years and still not feel that you've achieved anything. So having some kind of plan to measure what you're doing against, as I say, even if you decide it was the wrong plan, that's okay.
What is so my favourite answer to this, but what is the how far do you recommend? I hate saying should. Sorry. How far do you recommend planning ahead? Because I just think I remember people go, oh, I'm going to get a business plan, and they spend 6 weeks writing this Magna Carta type thing that no one's interested in. And I if you need to pitch an investor, you need something like that. But what do you recommend to people like us?
Yeah, and I mean, writing a business plan is only really useful if you're looking to get an overdraft at the bank or something like that. But using the components of a business plan, what are you selling? Who are you going to sell it to? How many people are there who are likely to buy it? Just the very basics of market research. How long will it take you to make a revenue? How long will it be before some money comes in? That's really important part of the planning, because it doesn't happen overnight. So knowing maybe that you have to exist for 6 months before you get some revenue is really important. So I would say a plan for at least the first year. What are you going to achieve in the first 12 months? You can have a much more a vague but visionary type of plan, if you like, for 5 years. Most people talk about that. But if you've got a very specific thing you want to do, like, at the end of your first 12 months, you want to take your family on holiday and it's going to cost X, work backwards from that to what do you need in order to earn that money, as well as all the other money that you need to live. But what are the actions that you need to take every month, every week, every day in order to make that happen? So that's the kind of beauty of the plan, of having something that you can use as a working document, not something that you do and stick in a drawer and never look at it again.
Can you say something here about, as you're listening to that, is a lot of, and this is more to do with people who work for themselves and freelancers and consultants and coaches, but knowing how many clients you need, because many times I've sat around with people who they think they need as many clients as Coca-Cola, but they don't. Yeah. How to get that straight in your head to save yourself a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, actually, that's such a good point, Bernie. Yes, conversations that we have all the time with people. You get these messages on LinkedIn saying we can get you 1,000 leads and make you 100 appointments a week. I look at that and think, I wouldn't know what to do with 100 appointments a week. I haven't got time for 100 appointments a week. That's ludicrous. So yes, most coaches, consultants, they need maybe half a dozen clients over a year. Some of them will carry on, some will be replaced. But yeah, knowing, and this comes back to knowing how much money you need to make and what the actions are that you need in order to make that happen, and that includes how many clients. If you're selling a product, then the manufacturing cost and the production cost and all the rest of it obviously needs to come into it, and you talk in different kinds of units. But if it's your own time and skills that you're selling, most likely you only need a handful of clients.
That's so true. I remember that conversation in work.
Sorry to interrupt, but the most important thing about that is that most of those clients will come from people you already know.
That is a really good point too.
There'll be referrals, or there'll be past clients who've recommended you, or there'll be returning clients. And again, that's something that a lot of people forget about. That once people have bought from you once, they are most likely to buy from you again, if you're any good at all at what you do. So it's a very, very small pond that you need to fish in to get those clients.
I think. Well, I'm going to make a new point because it's more interesting than my original point. So I was talking to someone we both know the other day, and they were talking about running Google ad things, and I was like, people don't. I don't know. Maybe they do, but like I just don't think people would buy a website designer and builder from a Google ad thing. It's going to be, there's enough of those in the world, and you probably go to Fiverr before you went to a Google ad, and people would hire this person because of their background and creativity and music and everything like that. And it's easier to talk about them than it is to go and answer a Google ad. And that word of mouth thing in, micro-y, freelance-y, consulting things is just so powerful.
Really, really is. Yeah.
And every like really fun, interesting, well-paid gig I've ever had has happened in like, you should speak to Bernie, one meeting, one phone call, off we go. And I enjoy making videos and podcasts and everything else you need to do to get around, but there's someone called Deborah Komosky, who some people listening to this will know from London Co-working Assembly, and she was in Tag Tribe, and she has worked in print design, working online with words and everything since the 80s. And she did this exercise once, and she worked on the anti-apartheid campaign in the 80s to free Nelson Mandela. That's how long she's been around. And she traced all her work back to 3 people when she did this exercise in a workshop once, and all her work over like 40 years has come from like Ann and Bob. Have we run out of things yet?
No, we're number 6, and the last one is to take consistent action. It's none of this is going to happen overnight. There is no overnight success in any of this kind of business. However much you hear people talk about it, it's not a short-term thing. So there will be days when you think, "Oh my God, how much longer am I going to have to go on doing this in order to make it work?" And the answer is, for as long as it takes, as long as you've got the vision and the need and the skills and the resources and a plan, you keep doing what you're doing consistently, because 90% of the people who see what you're doing won't be ready to buy from you at the time they see it. But if you keep putting stuff out there consistently to show people what you do and to talk about what you do, there will come a day when those people are ready. Or they're ready to recommend you to someone else. So the consistent action of letting people know what it is that you can do for them is hugely important. Even on the days when you really, really, really think, is this worth it? You've got to keep doing it.
That is, I feel like I'm saying that's so true to everything you say on this podcast, but the amount of people that come back and say, I've listened to your podcast, can we have a chat? And they listen to the podcast in like 2019 is, unbelievable. And there's people we're working with now, and I cannot believe they listen to this podcast. They're probably listening to this now, so hi folks. But it is really valuable to keep communicating. And John Boscawen used to say something like, marketing is a commitment, not a campaign.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's really true. What about when, like, taking action? What about when you get like, oh, I'm really stuck, and you lose all. Trying to think of a song lyric there. There's an REM song bubbling away here. Think you've had enough. Because it, like, how amazingly stuck I've been, and I've need to like get out my own way, and sometimes that's taken 2 hours, and some of that's taken 2 months. But like, what's I'm not asking for a quick fix here, but like, what is a way to like recognize you're stuck and just get on with it?
This is again coming back to the real advantages of having a peer group that you can trust. So we were talking earlier about collaborations and seeing people as collaborators rather than competition. Those people are also your support group, because it's very unusual for everybody in a group to go down the tubes at the same time. So there will always be somebody there that you can talk to, who will say more than likely, I felt like that a couple of months ago, and what I did was this. So you might like to try some of that, and that might work for you. But very often, this is really good. Very often, what happens is the very act of telling somebody, even writing it down in a Slack group or a text message or something, the very act of writing down what you're stuck with or articulating what you're stuck with will often present you with the idea of what you can do about it. I've had so many messages where at the end somebody said, actually, I think I've worked it out now just by writing it down. So we can have a chat if you like, but I don't think I need to anymore.
That is absolutely true. Like, endless scenarios. And then when I don't want to talk to anyone, I'll work this out on my own. Like, it's taken me a long time to work that out. But like, when I don't want to talk to anyone about it and figure out myself, I know I'm in a place, and it's better to just call someone up and being in groups. And you don't, like, the other thing, folks, is you don't have to like turn up and bleed into the Zoom call or the Slack channel. It's just like, I'm a bit stuck, and everyone else gets stuck too. And if you're in a group of people where they don't get stuck, that is a bit weird.
Yeah. There's one thing I would say there, Bernie, is if people are having days where they really are under the duvet and can't bear to get out, it's also okay to say, I'm spending a couple of days in self-pity city. If I'm not out by Thursday, come and find me.
That's true too. You give yourself permission to let go. And I was talking to someone I met last night, and we were actually talking about financial trauma and intergenerational trauma and stuff like this. It was a very complicated conversation. And then we got to a point like this, and she said, I've just learned to like let that pain come. And then it comes in like a few hours, not like slowly over a year. And then when it's almost like letting it blow through you, was what she said. And I felt, and the way I'm not even doing it justice now, the way she described it was absolutely beautiful. And it is just like lie on the sofa and let it go, rather than trying to carry it around. And I think when you carry those things around, it's like carrying around a big ball of cement that dries harder and harder and harder, and you end up getting more and more stuck.
It's so important, because we were talking before we started the recording about the culture of hustling, where people are there's no failure allowed. You've got to hustle and hustle and hustle until you make it. And we have a terrible culture of believing that people who make a lot of money are successful and people who don't are failures, and that's simply not true. People don't have money for all sorts of reasons that are nothing to do with them. It's to do with the way society is structured and all kinds of other things. But the trauma associated with not having money can be a lifelong affliction. So if you were brought up in a family where money was really scarce, you're likely to carry that through your whole life with you, and it will affect the way you make decisions. So it's so important to recognize that and not to judge yourself by that, because that causes so many problems for people, and those problems are avoidable just by talking to people who understand what's going on.
And I think that when I call up someone who runs, and I don't mean this is instead of a job kind of thing, but like, when I call up someone that runs their own operation, their own whatever size business it is, and says, can you help me with this, or what do you think I should do with this? They kind of know, even though it might sound ridiculous. Like I know, you've got to do all this stuff, and you can't get out of bed. And if someone gave you an ice cream before 11 o'clock, it would change everything. Let's go. And it's lovely having that peer group. One peer group I meant to ask you about 20 minutes ago was the Neotists, one of my favorite side hustle groups. How can you just let's wrap up the podcast and tell us about the beautiful universe of the Neotists?
I will. So the Neotists was started 10 years ago by a graphic designer called Richard Slade and his wife Claire, and they'd moved to this lovely town called St Neots in Cambridgeshire. And Richard realised that he didn't know any other creative people in the town, so he started a little meeting and said, if you're creative and you want to come and meet some other creative people, come along. And 10 years later, they've got 350 members who do every kind of creative thing you can imagine. And by the way, everybody's creative. There's lots of people say, I can't join because I'm not creative. Everybody's creative. Choosing your own clothes, deciding what hair colour you're going to have, making a meal, it's creative. So everybody's welcome. And they do stuff together. It's a hugely fast-growing town, an old market town that's been subsumed by massive development. And the latest project they're doing is something called New to Town. And I think this is based on somebody that you might have introduced, Tony Balenciago, who did something like this in the States, saying, if you're new to town, come to this meeting.
Tony Bacigalupi.
That's the one.
Yes, me, co-host here.
That's the one. And tell us what you can bring. So this is the phrasing on this is so important. So you're not saying what can we do for you to make you feel welcome. You're saying, what have you got? What do you want to bring to this? What kind of town do you want to create? What kind of town do you want to live in? And and the skills that you bring, they might be filmmaking, they might be artistic, they might just be curiosity, they might just be, I really like to figure out how things work, or who people are, or what part of the world they've come from, and what they bring, what culture they bring with them. It can be anything. And the whole idea of that is that this comes back to a concept that I was introduced to a couple of years ago by an author called John Alexander, who runs the New Citizen Project. And this is all based on the idea that if you can figure out a different way to work with people, of not doing things for them, not saying, oh yes, I have the skills and the power, I know what's good for you, but saying to people, what can you do with each other, for each other, as a community, it changes the whole dynamic. And this is what's happening with the Neotists. It's a work in progress, as all of these things are, but so much good stuff can happen because of this. It's the most amazing concept.
So I'm going to do this seamless link here. So there's my new golf buddy John Alexander, he's come and done a couple of things for us in the London Co-working Assembly, which they've just been conversations. There's no star speaker, sign my book at the end of it thing. He has just invited a conversation twice in London. That's been great. And Tony Bacigalupi, who you just mentioned, interviewed him on this podcast, and we'll put a link in the show notes about that. And then John, I'm just saying this so I can put the link in the show notes. So John and Simon Duffy and Martin Sibley are doing a session at the Conduit in London, which you can access online, which is why I'm mentioning it here. And it's about it's like citizenship and
it's
accessibility.
it's about the future of social care. So, and the idea is that welfare state and all that kind of stuff, especially in the UK, the caring system that people access is usually decided by somebody who doesn't need it, who gives it. We're providing this for you, you poor people who can't provide for yourselves. And so the whole idea of that is, and Martin describes it beautifully, he says, nothing about us without us. So if you're a wheelchair user, you need to be in on all the conversations that affect wheelchair users, from government policy to railways to, he's just done the most amazing thing about rights on flights.
I saw that.
And the whole idea is, well, there are several phrases. One is to put more power in the hands of more people. It's not about politicians doing stuff for us. It's about us saying we can do this together. But also that together, we can fix most of the things that need fixing if we work together. Because people working together are smarter than any one single person on their own. The skills and the talents and the enthusiasm and the creativity that they bring is extraordinary. So that's kind of what the whole thing's about.
And can you just describe Martin? One of my favorite people in the universe ever. Like whatever he's doing, he looks like he's having a good time. He could be at the dentist's and he'd be smiling.
Martin. Somebody said on his website he describes himself as a regular guy who just happens to be a wheelchair user. He has this condition called spinal muscular atrophy. So he's been a wheelchair user since he was a very, very tiny child. And to say that nothing stops him from doing what he wants to do. He went to a regular school, he went to university, he did a master's degree. He left home and went to work in London independently, and he needs carers, they're called personal assistants now, not carers, but people who actually get him up every morning. He can't dress himself or do all the things that most people can do. So he needs this support system around him all the time. But he started 3 different businesses. He sold one to Airbnb, which is about accommodation that was accessible.
Travel.
Yeah. And he's now running a marketing agency called Purple Goat, which uses disabled influencers to help brands to market to disabled people, which is a huge, huge market. So they employ 30 people. He's the CEO, and and in between, he's travelled all over the world. He's been skydiving, scuba diving, skiing, you name it. Drunken wheelchair, racing, all kinds of things. He has a great life. This year, he married his longtime partner. They had the most extraordinary wedding. They did a wedding dance, which I defy anybody to watch without bursting into tears. He is a regular guy.
I love him. I knew he had a book for a long time, but I only realised it was on Audible about a year ago. And even though I already knew him, reading that makes me love him even more. And the way he talks about traveling to Australia and Mexico. And when he gets stuck in Mexico, at the same time he got stuck in Mexico because of the Icelandic thing, we got stuck in Argentina. So I don't know why, but I was feeling it even more because we were away at the same time. And he's like, we had to stay in this 5-star accommodation in Mexico, which, because of a volcano in Iceland, which imagine the inconvenience. And we were in Argentina, and we've been in Argentina for 5 weeks, and we had to stay another week, but we didn't tell anybody we were staying, and now they know, but this was a long time ago. But we just stayed in our friend's house with a swimming pool and had the most relaxing time ever, because we couldn't be at work in London because we couldn't get home, and we just couldn't go and see anyone else. So I'm not sure how that relates to co-working and working together, but I just had to finish on that note. Ann Hawkins, where can we find you, and tell us about Drive, because I'm definitely going to put a link in the show notes there.
Okay, you can find me just on LinkedIn these days. I've given up on all the other social media crap. So on LinkedIn and at annhawkins.com is my website. I also run a peer group, mentoring, collaboration, organisation network called Drive. Drive is based on Dan Pink's book, which is all about why people start their own businesses and what people do when they have autonomy, and the things that motivate them, which is their internal drive when they're not being told what to do by other people. So you can see that there's lots of links and things together, and that's called Drive, the collaborative network, and that's on LinkedIn, and we've got a website, drivethenetwork.com.
Gee, Ann, how can I get to a Drive and see what it's like?
We have Zoom meetings every Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. Anybody's welcome to turn up and just see what we do, meet people. We don't have an agenda. We do not go around the table and introduce each other.
Hello, I'm Alan, the accountant. I'm Bertie, the bookkeeper.
Because most people cringe. So we have very subtle ways of getting to know each other. We call it subtle networking. And people get to know each other as people, not just about what they do.
Folks, so many good things have come out of those Thursday hours over the last few years. It's a really, really great place to be. Okay, we will put a link to all of that in the show notes, and in the show, I'm very proud of the show notes, folks. In the show notes, there's a link to the Workspace Design Show, which is in February 2025, and also to one of the things we're talking about non-stop is European Co-working Day, which is in May. But we're starting the conversation now because, the examples that we've given in this podcast, people connecting is really, really important. So it's not about European Co-working Day; it's about connecting and working together to raise awareness of co-working. So have a remarkable day. Be careful out there. It is a jungle.
Thanks, Bertie.